So this week, the message is about a bus. Don't get frightened. School hasn't started yet. So an apple and a bus. The message of our sermons are really about preaching and teaching. Because you know that all about that bus, no trouble. I'm all about that bus, no trouble. No, not making here. See, when we first meet Rebekah, she stands out as not conforming to patriarchal standards for women. Her birth is announced in a lineage beginning with a woman. The marriage of Isaac and Rebekah, even though arranged, was a love relationship. Finally, after 20 years, Rebekah conceives. When her pregnancy distresses her, Rebekah does not go to Isaac. She goes directly to inquire of God. There is no need for intercession. Fraternal male twins, Esau and Jacob, struggled together within her. You know, I always like this story since I have a fraternal twin. Despondent Rebekah cries out, "If it is to be this way, why do I live?" And God responds, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples born of you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger." Such a two-way street between God and individual women in the Old Testament is extraordinarily rare. God spoke with Eve, Hagar, and Rebekah. Not just to them, but back and forth in dialogue. Some say that Rebekah was a woman of deceit, yet God had told her that her younger son would be the stronger twin, and the older would serve the younger. Given that knowledge and knowing she was a daughter of the covenant, did she interfere with God's work or help it along? Was Rebekah adventuresome, decisive, strategic, protective, cunning, or courageous? Let's find out about Rebekah and a couple of modern-day women and that bus. My sisters and brothers, will you pray with me? Holy One, may we, like Rebekah, speak, pray, and develop a course of action in our lives and deal with the consequences as they arise. Sometimes you call us to push boundaries in living a life of faith. May we always seek to be curious and passionate in carrying out your will. And in the midst of challenges, may we let go of fear and step out with spiritual boldness and courage, living a life as Jesus taught us to live, a life where our love cannot be silenced. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be pleasing to you, gracious and loving God. Amen. Psalm 31, verse 24. Be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. A woman Episcopal priest, Lindsay Hardin Freeman, wrote a book titled Bible Women, All the Words and Why They Matter. In her research, she found that the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible in English, the one we use here at MCCPB, is about 1.1 million words long. About 14,000 are spoken by women. That is 1.2% of the words in the Bible are spoken by women. Bible women, especially those who speak, are surprisingly bold. Women say more in the book of Genesis, some 1,117 words, than any other book in the Bible, with the exception of the Song of Solomon. Rebekah has the most, at 293. Now last week's bad girl, Eve, had only 74. So Rebekah had 4 times more words than Eve. Rebekah must be pretty bold. Would you agree?
Yeah.
See, at the beginning of the Bible is a book of beginnings. Beginning of the world and the beginning of Israel. Inheritance is an essential theme of Genesis and indeed of every family history. The stories reveal the structure of Israel's family, a patriarchy, like other ancient families, in which decision-making authority rested in the hands of the father. They also reveal the important role that women could play in patriarchal families. The matriarchs work to direct, shape, and secure the destiny of the family. First Sarah and then Rebekah show how significant the character and actions of a woman could be to the future of the family. The social custom in ancient Israel demanded that the chosen heir to the father's lineage be in possession of this birthright. Motherhood confirmed social and cultural validation in a woman within her family unit. A woman served the interests of her husband's family and her own interests as well, when she provided a son to carry on his genealogy. How much more so when a woman like Rebekah bore 2 sons? The reader has been given 2 clues that God has a special interest in Rebekah. Both the announcement of her birth and the providential nature of her marriage indicate that she is a woman of destiny with a divinely ordained role to play. But first, she must become a mother. And this is neither easy nor ordinary. Like Sarah before her and Rachel after her, Rebekah has to undergo a period of infertility. After 20 long years, Rebekah conceives. The struggles in her womb are just the beginning of this oracle poetry. She is told that she has twins in her womb who are destined to become 2 separate nations. Twins, of course, heighten the problem of sibling rivalry, which is such a prominent issue in the ancestral stories. Rebekah is given a clue as to how the struggles are destined to be resolved. The elder will work for the younger, says the oracle. Or does it say the elder, the younger will work for? Oracles may be informative, but they are never clear. The events that happen later in chapter 27 help one to interpret the oracle, which Reverend Paulette read today. The birth of the twins seems to provide a clue. Jacob, coming close on Esau's heel, seems to bear out the idea that the younger son will not be content to be the lesser, and that the elder will someday work for the younger. See, oracles are expected to lead to action. Rebekah takes a prominent role in fulfilling her birth oracle. She takes action to guarantee that her younger son will achieve his destiny as the preeminent heir. That moment comes that it's time to transfer the family heritage from Isaac to the next generation. See, this is the part of the story where we usually are introduced to Rebekah, at the blessing of Jacob instead of Esau, in Genesis chapter 27. See, there's no surprise that Rebekah ensures that the son singled out by God receives the proper blessing from Isaac. The narrator gives information to understand Rebekah's motivation. She knows from the birth oracle that Jacob is God's chosen. In addition, Esau's sale of his birthright confirms that he is not entitled to the first blessing. See, this account is so important for the understanding of the role of Rebekah and her characterization in the Genesis narrative. It shows Rebekah acted decisively to ensure that the blessing of Isaac is awarded to the son designated by God to carry on the promise. She does not act unfairly to Esau or to Isaac, but skillfully completes the task initiated by God. Rebekah thus plays a crucial role in the ancestral narratives by ensuring the continuation of the promise for future generations. See, early interpreters, both Jewish and Christian, praised Rebekah, as did medieval and Reformation writers. The censor didn't begin to condemn her until the end of the 19th century, when male biblical scholars began to condone her as a Lady Macbeth, or for us today, a bad girl of the Bible. To some contemporary eyes, the cunning of Rebekah's plan is itself a mark of divine guidance in her role as a divine helper. But some readers have accused Rebekah of improper and immoral behavior. One of the biblical author's favorite narrative patterns is that of the trickster. Israelites tend to portray their ancestors and thereby imagine themselves as underdogs, as people outside the establishment who achieve success in roundabout ways. One of the ways marginals confront those in power to achieve their goals is through deception or trickery. Like this mic.
It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
Here, it's okay.
It's too loud.
Only the powerful value honesty is at all cost. The powerless know that trickery may save their lives. And it's not a trait limited to women. To be a trickster is to be of unstable status, to be involved in transformation and change. In Genesis, tricksters are found among Israelites sojourning in foreign lands, among younger sons who would inherit, and among women. Isaac and Rebekah were aware of their societal norm for the firstborn son to receive the patriarchal blessing. But with regard to Isaac's blessing, Rebekah did not see her action as one of deception, but rather fulfillment. She may have looked upon herself as the available instrument in carrying out her son's manifest destiny. God is always showing us something, and we must pay attention. Amen? Some commentators have even suggested that Rebekah finds the system of the exclusive privilege of the eldest son unfair. She might think that the right of the firstborn in the case of the twin is unfair. Revolt against a social justice lies in her plan. That was an interesting thought. What might we learn from Rebekah? Rebekah's stories. We see Rebekah's wisdom as a wisdom of women that involves listening closely and working behind the scenes to accomplish goals. Her decisiveness, her strong will, and her embrace of her destiny make her a strong, active link between Abraham and Jacob. Be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. Over the ages, many Bible readers have thought Rebekah is one who was full of deceit and cunning. But today, we look at Rebekah and found that she knows something of divine destiny, having heard directly from God that the older twin will serve the younger. As a woman of the covenant, and like her mother-in-law Sarah before her, Rebekah intervened to ensure that God's promise takes precedence. She has devoted her life to the promise. Rebekah was outspoken in expressing her desires and feelings. She expressed her pain and anxiety over her difficult pregnancy. She inquired of God without hesitation, and God speaks to her. She risked her husband's curse in obtaining the blessing for Jacob and continues to protect him when she is threatened by Esau. Rebekah, a child of destiny, was courageous and the agent of God's promise. I would like to share some modern-day examples of women of destiny. Women of courage who are fulfilling what they believe God wants in their work as advocates of systemic change and agents of God's promise. Like Rebekah, they will intervene to ensure that God's promise takes precedence. Let's hear about these women and that bus. Driving up from my home in Fort Lauderdale on Sundays, I listen to NPR and a show called On Being with Chris Tippett. Has anybody heard? I've listened to that. I have drawn inspiration and teachings from the many guests that have been on the show. A couple of weeks ago, I listened to a conversation with Sister Simone Campbell, a modern-day matriarch, a woman about transformation and change. She became a national figure as the face of the nuns on the bus. It's all about that bus, No trouble. You know what caught my ear? As once I thought I was called to be a nun. Some of you know that story. But Sister Simone Campbell is a lawyer, a lobbyist, a poet, and Zen contemplative working on issues as mending the wealth gap, enacting a living wage, and crafting a faithful budget that benefits the 100%. She is a helpful voice for longings that many of us share across differences about how to engage with the well-being of our neighbors in the 21st century. An article about her was entitled, How to Be Spiritually Bold. See, in 2008, an investigation began of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, which is a network of 1,500 Catholic sisters that represents about 80% of the 50,000 nuns in the U.S. A report was issued 3 years ago that said the sisters were promoting radical feminist themes incompatible with the Catholic faith in their publication and choice of speakers. It also accused the nuns of spending more time working against poverty and on social justice, spending more time working against poverty and social justice than on the church's teaching about abortion and same-sex marriage. That they had undermined the church teaching on homosexuality, birth control, and all-male priesthood. Of course, the nuns group called the allegations flawed. See, under the previous pope, the Vatican's doctrinal office had appointed 3 bishops in 2012 to overhaul the nuns group, the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. The Vatican Reform mandate said that the nuns group was in a grave doctrinal crisis. But a few months ago, the Vatican abruptly ended its takeover of the main leadership group of American nuns 2 years earlier than expected, allowing Pope Francis to put to rest a confrontation started by his predecessor that created an uproar among American Catholics who rallied to the sisters' defense. It became a movement with its own theme, and the theme was love cannot be silenced. You know, there's a quote from Lao Tzu, a philosopher and poet from ancient China, founder of Taoism, and said, because of great love, one is courageous. You see that again. Because of great love, one is courageous. Rebekah, Sister Simone. You know, the friendly resolution came as a great relief to the sisters and supporters. This Reverend James Jesuit, wrote often about the conflict. He said, "What you see with the sisters is true courage, which is being faithful to the church authority and also to who they are." One sister said, "We learn that what we hold in common is much greater than any of our differences." See, both sides reaffirmed a commitment to maintain unity and keeping the faith and spiritual practices of the church as the heart of their common mission. My sisters and brothers, how can we maintain unity and keep faith and spiritual practices in our hearts as we seek our common mission in doing the work and will of God? Be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. I'd like now to present a local matriarch, who I believe to be strong and courageous, a woman about transformation and change. Estella Pyfrom was born in Quincy, Florida, and grew up in Belle Glade, Florida. Estella served on the Broward County Commission on the Status of Women for 4 years. She was a national and state supervisor of girls' clubs and a Girl Scout troop leader for several years. She served the 48 years in the Palm Beach County School District. 48 years. Then she stepped out with faith and courage and bought a bus. I'm all about that bus. About that bus, no trouble. Estella is the one we're supporting for our summer social justice project in this month of August. See, her commitment is to create a network of opportunities that will provide educational training and self-help experiences in underserved areas that will empower children and families with lifelong learning and access to technology while partnering with community agencies. Estella has invested a large sum of her pension money, talk about courage, to the project in order to make this vision become a reality. Estella's brilliant bus, formerly known as Project Aspiration, is a customized mobile learning center designed to travel to communities and deliver services where service is needed. I spoke with her this week, and we hope to have the bus here when she comes to speak to our church during our church services September 13th. Estella has a passion to help underprivileged children and families, as well as culturally and economically disadvantaged children and families, improve their lives. My sisters and brothers, what are we passionate about? What are we willing to commit our time, talent, and treasure to? We have so many opportunities to be involved with doing God's work and will in this church and the community around us. Rebekah speaks, prays, and develops and implements a course of action, and she is willing to deal with the consequences. Rebekah understands her role in the culture of her day, but she pushes the boundaries. She shows a life of faith and prayer when she inquires of God about her pregnancy. She shows great curiosity about the fighting between her sons while they were enclosed in her body. She believes she is doing God's work and will. In the midst of challenges, Rebekah appears to be a strong woman. She takes matters into her own hands, works her plan to perfection. She is brave, courageous, and bold. Sister Simone and Estella Pyfrom are modern-day examples of women who are brave, courageous, and bold, and step out with spiritual boldness. Be strong and courageous, all you who put your hope in the Lord. My sisters and brothers, we have a divinely ordained role to play. Like the matriarchs of the past and the present, we must get to work to direct and shape our destiny. We must be willing to engage with the well-being of our neighbors in the 21st century. My sisters and brothers like Rebekah, like Sister Simone, like Estella, we must be agents of God's promise. We are all about that bus. About transformation and change. Let us be strong and courageous and step out with spiritual boldness and shout, our love cannot be silenced. Let me hear it. Our love cannot be silenced. Again, our love cannot be silenced. Loving God, we put our hope in you. And this is the good news. Amen.